You were told it was online shopping that killed Main Street, that Amazon and convenience buried the corner store. But what's happening now isn't about clicks replacing bricks. It's about entire categories of American life retreating from physical space, not adapting, not pivoting, disappearing. The storefronts going dark aren't just retail. They're pharmacies where your grandmother picked up prescriptions for 30 years, hardware stores that knew your name, diners that opened before dawn, banks with tellers who remembered your kids. These weren't luxuries. They were infrastructure. And across thousands of towns, that infrastructure is collapsing. You see it in the longer drives to find what you need. The sections of town that used to hum now sit silent. Parking lots with weeds pushing through asphalt. Windows soaped over with no forwarding address. This isn't a recession story. It's not a pandemic hangover. It's a structural unraveling that started before COVID and accelerated into something larger. The collapse of Main Street has spread beyond Main Street. It's in the services you can't access, the jobs that evaporated, the tax base that funds your schools and roads. It's in the choices you no longer have and the distances you now travel for things that used to be 5 minutes away. This isn't nostalgia, it's documentation. What you're about to hear is the anatomy of how American commercial life is withdrawing from physical communities, who's being left behind, and why the solutions aren't working. Let's go inside the collapse. There was a time when a town's pharmacy wasn't just a place to fill prescriptions. It was a fixture, a presence, somewhere between a medical checkpoint and a social anchor. The pharmacist knew your medications, your history, your family's needs. You didn't call a hotline, you walked in and asked. That model is vanishing at a pace that should alarm anyone paying attention.
Over the past 5 years, thousands of independent pharmacies have closed across the United States. Source: National Community Pharmacists Association reports. But it's not just the independents. Major chains are shuttering locations in waves. Walgreens announced plans to close hundreds of stores. CVS followed with its own contraction. Rite Aid filed for bankruptcy and began liquidating locations. These aren't struggling outliers. These are the anchors. And when they leave, they don't leave a competitor behind. They leave a gap. 10 miles, 15, sometimes more. The reasons stack like pressure points. Reimbursement rates from insurance companies and government programs have been cut so deeply that many prescriptions lose money to fill. Pharmacy benefit managers, the middlemen between insurers and pharmacies, squeeze margins to fractions. Theft has spiked, especially in urban locations, forcing stores to lock up products or hire security they can't afford. Foot traffic is down as consumers shift to mail-order prescriptions and online shopping. Lease costs haven't dropped to match the new reality. The math stopped working, and so the lights go out. In rural Indiana, a woman in her 70s now drives 40 minutes round trip to get her insulin. The town's only pharmacy closed last spring. There's a grocery store, a gas station, a post office, but no pharmacy. She arranges her week around refill days. If she runs out, the nearest urgent care is 30 miles in the other direction. She's not alone. Millions of Americans now live in pharmacy deserts, areas where the closest drugstore is more than a reasonable distance away. These aren't just inconveniences, they're health risks. Missed doses, delayed treatments, emergencies that escalate because access collapsed. And this is only the beginning.
Because when pharmacies disappear, they take something else with them. The assumption that essential services will be there when you need them. The grocery store was supposed to be untouchable. People have to eat. But across America, supermarkets are closing in communities that still have plenty of people who need food. It's not that demand disappeared. It's that the economics broke, and the breakage is spreading. In the past 3 years, multiple regional grocery chains have filed for bankruptcy or shut down locations. Source: industry reports from Supermarket News and regional closures tracked by state agencies. Tops, Winn-Dixie, Lucky's, Belo. These weren't boutique operations. They were where families shopped for decades. In some towns, they were the only full-service grocery option. When they closed, residents were left with dollar stores and gas stations, places that sell shelf-stable processed food, but no fresh produce, no meat counter, no pharmacy section, no bakery. The term for this is a food desert, and it's no longer limited to inner cities. It's spreading to suburbs and small towns that thought they were immune. The causes aren't singular. they're compounded. Labor costs have spiked as minimum wages rise and worker shortages force stores to pay more for fewer hours of coverage. Shoplifting and organized retail theft have forced stores to hire security, lock up products, and absorb losses that erase thin profit margins. Supply chain disruptions raised costs for everything from delivery to refrigeration. Energy bills climbed. Lease obligations became untenable. Meanwhile, competitors with deeper pockets, Walmart, Amazon Fresh, discounters, undercut prices in ways independent and mid-sized grocers couldn't match, so they closed. In a town outside Pittsburgh, a family now drives 22 miles to buy groceries. Their local supermarket shut down 18 months ago. The building sits empty. No buyer, no replacement.
They tried shopping at the dollar store for a while, but feeding 3 kids on packaged snacks and canned goods wasn't sustainable. Now they make the drive every week, burning gas and time they didn't used to spend. They're not alone. Millions of Americans now live more than 10 miles from a full-service grocery store. They plan trips, they stockpile, they make do. But the cost isn't just in miles, it's in nutrition, in health outcomes, in the erosion of the belief that basic needs will be met locally. And the stores that remain are struggling too. Aisles are shorter, selections are narrower, staff is stretched. The abundance that used to define American grocery shopping is thinning. What's left is leaner, fragile, and at risk of further retreat. Banks used to mean buildings, branches on corners with tellers behind glass and loan officers in back rooms. You deposited checks in person. You asked questions face to face. That model is dying faster than almost any other category of Main Street business. In the past decade, more than 10,000 bank branches have closed across the United States. The pace is accelerated. Major institutions, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PNC, have shuttered hundreds of locations each. Regional banks followed. Community banks, the kind that financed local businesses and knew their customers by name, have consolidated or disappeared entirely. The explanation given is digital migration. People bank on their phones now. They deposit checks with photos. They transfer money with apps. Branches are expensive to operate and redundant in an era of mobile banking. But that narrative erases a fundamental divide. Not everyone has shifted digital. Not everyone can. Older Americans, immigrants, low-income families, people in rural areas. Millions rely on physical branches for services that apps don't easily replace. Cashing checks,
Getting cashier's checks, resolving disputes, opening accounts, accessing safe deposit boxes. When branches close, these populations are stranded. In a small town in Arkansas, the last bank closed 2 years ago. The nearest branch is now 35 miles away. Residents who need in-person banking, seniors without smartphones, small business owners who deposit cash daily now face a choice: make the drive or go without. Some have switched to check cashing stores that charge fees the bank didn't. Others have started keeping more cash at home, a risk in itself. The town's businesses feel it too. Fewer banking options means slower transactions, higher costs, less flexibility. The closure wasn't because the town was dying. People still live there. They still work. But the bank's parent company decided the branch wasn't profitable enough to justify staying, and so it left. This is the new calculus: profitability over presence, efficiency over access. The problem is that banking isn't just a service, it's infrastructure. When it retreats, it doesn't just inconvenience customers, it destabilizes economies. Small businesses struggle to get loans. Residents lose access to credit. Communities become financially isolated. And once a bank leaves, it rarely comes back. The cost of reopening a branch is too high, the population too small, the margins too thin. What's left is a growing number of banking deserts, places where the nearest physical bank is miles away, and the assumption of local financial infrastructure has collapsed. Restaurants and diners weren't just places to eat. They were gathering points: morning coffee crowds, lunch rushes, Friday night dinners. They employed local people. They bought from local suppliers. They were woven into the rhythm of a town's day. And they're closing at a rate that's gutting the social and economic fabric of communities across the country. The National Restaurant Association estimates that tens of thousands of restaurants have permanently closed since the start of the pandemic. Source: industry data and state health department records. But the closures didn't stop when dining rooms reopened. They've continued. Independent diners, family-owned cafes, mid-tier chains that served communities for generations. The causes are stacked and unrelenting. Labor shortages have made it nearly impossible to staff kitchens and front-of-house positions. Wages have risen, but so has turnover. Food costs have spiked. Meat, dairy, produce, cooking oil, everything costs more, and the increases haven't stabilized. Rent and utilities haven't dropped. Delivery app fees eat into already thin margins. And customer behavior has shifted. People eat out less, they order delivery more, they're more price sensitive. The math that used to work, slim profit margins buffered by volume and regularity, has broken. In a town in Michigan, the diner that opened at 5 in the morning for 40 years closed last fall. The owner couldn't find cooks. The ones she had were working 70-hour weeks and burning out. She raised wages but couldn't raise prices enough to cover the gap without losing customers. Food costs doubled on some items. The lease went up. She held on as long as she could, then locked the doors. The building is still empty. No one's tried to reopen it. The economics that killed it haven't changed. That diner employed 11 people. It was where the town's morning crowd gathered, where high schoolers worked their first jobs, where families went after church. When it closed, those routines dissolved. The jobs disappeared. The gathering point vanished. And the town became a little quieter, a little less connected. This pattern is repeating everywhere. The closures aren't just about food. They're about employment, community space, and the infrastructure of daily life.
When restaurants die, they take pieces of a town's identity with them. And what's replacing them? Fast food chains, drive-thrus, nothing at all, doesn't fill the gaps they leave behind. Hardware stores were where you went when something broke. The sink leaked, the fence needed a board, the door hinge gave out. You walked in and someone who'd worked there for 20 years knew exactly what you needed. That knowledge base is vanishing. Independent hardware stores have been closing for decades, but the pace has accelerated as big box retailers expanded and e-commerce took over the repair and DIY market. Lowe's and Home Depot dominate, but even they have closed underperforming locations. Ace Hardware franchises, often the last holdouts in small towns, are shuttering when owners retire and no one steps in. The problem isn't just competition. It's a collapse in the business model that made small hardware stores viable. Suppliers have consolidated, giving independents less leverage and higher wholesale costs. Customers increasingly buy online, especially for specialized tools and parts. Foot traffic has declined. Younger generations are less likely to DIY repairs, opting instead to call a service or replace rather than fix. Lease costs and inventory expenses haven't adjusted downward to match the new reality. So the stores close. And when they do, the loss is more than retail. In a town in Nebraska, the hardware store closed after 60 years. The owner retired. His kids didn't want the business. The building sold to a developer who hasn't done anything with it yet. Now, if you need a specific bolt, a length of pipe, a replacement part for an appliance, you drive 30 miles to the nearest big box store or order online and wait. The immediacy is gone. The expertise is gone. The guy who could tell you not just what part you needed, but how to install it, he's gone. And the ripple effect is real. Local contractors and handymen used to rely on that store for quick supply runs. Now they build in extra time for drives or keep larger inventories themselves. Homeowners delay small repairs because the effort to source parts is greater than the problem itself. Projects that used to take an afternoon now take a weekend. The friction has increased, and with it, the capacity for people to maintain their own homes and communities has diminished. This isn't nostalgia for a bygone era. It's a functional loss. When hardware stores disappear, they take with them a piece of self-sufficiency, a layer of local capability that made communities more resilient. What's replacing them doesn't offer the same value. A website can sell you a part. It can't walk you through the fix. Clothing stores were once everywhere. Department stores anchored malls, boutiques lined downtowns, chain retailers filled strip centers. You could walk in, try things on, walk out with what you needed. That ecosystem has collapsed. Macy's, JCPenney, Sears, Kohl's, once untouchable giants, have closed hundreds of locations.
Sears, which had over 3,000 stores at its peak, is down to a handful. JCPenney filed for bankruptcy and shuttered dozens of locations. Macy's has announced waves of closures over consecutive years. Smaller chains and independents have fared worse. The Limited, Wet Seal, Charlotte Russe, Gymboree, Payless closed entirely. Others are on life support. The reasons aren't mysterious. Online shopping has fundamentally shifted how people buy clothing. The convenience of home delivery, easy returns, and endless selection has pulled customers away from physical stores. But it's not just consumer behavior. It's debt. Many of these retailers were loaded with debt from private equity buyouts and leveraged acquisitions. When sales softened, they couldn't service the debt and invest in stores simultaneously. So they cut. They closed.
They liquidated. Meanwhile, the commercial real estate model that supported them has broken. Malls that once thrived on anchor department stores are now half empty. Landlords can't fill the space. Foot traffic evaporates. Remaining stores close because no one's coming. The spiral accelerates. In a town in Ohio, the mall lost its last anchor store 3 years ago. JCPenney closed. Macy's had already left. A few smaller stores hung on for a while, but without the anchors drawing traffic, they couldn't survive. Now the mall is mostly dark. A couple of stores remain near one entrance. The food court is gone. The rest is empty hallways and locked gates. For the town's residents, buying clothing now means driving 40 minutes to the next town's mall or ordering online and hoping it fits. Returns are a hassle. Trying things on before buying is no longer an option unless you're willing to make the drive. Teenagers who used to hang out at the mall no longer have a place to go. It wasn't just retail. It was a social space, a safe place for young people to gather. When it died, that function died too. And the jobs evaporated. Hundreds of people worked in that mall. Retail clerks, managers, food service workers, maintenance staff. Most were part-time, but they added up. Those paychecks circulated in the local economy. When the stores closed, that money left. The tax revenue the mall generated disappeared. The town's budget tightened. Services were cut. This isn't unique. It's the pattern, and it's accelerating. The collapse of Main Street isn't a single event. It's a process, a slow-motion unraveling of the commercial and social infrastructure that held American communities together. What started with bookstores and video rental chains has spread to pharmacies, grocery stores, banks, restaurants, hardware stores, and clothing retailers.
The services and businesses that used to be background assumptions, there when you needed them, are now optional, distant, or gone, and the consequences are stacking. Economically, the closures mean fewer jobs, lower tax revenues, and reduced local spending. Socially, they mean fewer gathering places, less community interaction, and a thinning of the connective tissue that makes a place feel like a place. Geographically, they mean longer drives, greater isolation, and a widening divide between those who live near concentrated commercial centers and those who don't. The solutions offered so far haven't worked. E-commerce was supposed to democratize access, but it's concentrated wealth and eliminated local jobs. Small business grants and tax incentives haven't reversed the tide. Downtown revitalization projects often gentrify without addressing the structural issues that cause the decline. Pop-up shops and food trucks are creative, but don't replace the permanence and stability of established businesses. The reality is that the economic model that supported a dispersed network of local businesses has broken. Thin margins, high fixed costs, and consolidated competition have made it nearly impossible for small and mid-sized operators to survive. And the gap between what communities need and what the market will provide is growing. So what comes next? More closures, more consolidation, more distance between people and the services they need. More communities that look viable on a map, but feel hollow when you're living in them. The question isn't whether this will continue. It will. The question is what it means for the country when the physical infrastructure of daily life exists only in some places and not others. When access to a pharmacy or a grocery store or a bank depends on where you live and how far you're willing to drive. When entire categories of American life retreat from physical space and leave millions behind. These patterns aren't abstract, they're lived, every day, in longer drives and fewer choices, in closed storefronts and empty parking lots, in the quiet realization that the town you grew up in doesn't function the way it used to. What's disappeared in your area? What do you drive farther for now than you did 5 years ago? Tell us below.